The new game mode Zombie Survival has been out for a couple of days now, and I want to give you all my best tips so that you can score as high as possible every single week. We have a new week rotating in 1 day and 17 hours, so I want to give you all of the information I've gathered so that you can look at this ranking and see your name at the top, and you can collect the maximum rewards every week to the tune of an extra 1,000 tokens. Now, right off the rip, why do you want an extra 800 or 1,000 tokens for being in the top 2 ranks? Well, if you hit up the store, those 800 to 1,000 tokens are going to convert themselves into 300 Carbonadium, 300 Soul of the Faltine, 200 Life Seed, or they're going to convert themselves into almost 1 Odin's Blessing, and so on and so forth. The rewards for this game mode are very easy to get. You don't have to put in a ton of work. You don't have to be grinding day in and day out. This is something that you can get done in 1 day and then just look at over the next 6 days to make sure that you keep your rank. So it's got a really nice sort of energy put in to rewards out, kind of. You remember that equation we talked about? Like, how much effort, how much time do I have to put into this game mode? There is nuance, and you do need a bit of a wide roster, and the roster is going to be tested in the weeks to come because we don't know what skills are going to be restricted later on. We don't know what abilities are going to be banned. Right now, the ban list is not very punishing because it's just the strong ability, and right now the punishments or the sort of bans don't change from 1 all the way up to 90, but who knows? They may in the future. So let's dive right in with my basic tips for this game mode, and then into more of the advanced stuff. So we're just going to start off on stage 1, autoplay, so that I can talk about a couple of key things here that you may or may not have noticed. So this game mode can be played both manually and on auto, and there are advantages to both, so they're both valid forms of playing the game. Now, you will always be on manual if you're not on auto, but your teammate, in this case Deadpool, will always be on auto when you're not controlling them. And if I switch here to Deadpool, if I switch over to Deadpool now and the camera shifts, now Doctor Strange is going to be on auto. So there's no way to turn off your teammate, so to speak, even if you don't have the autoplay checked at the bottom. Now, at the bottom, you'll see under autoplay, it says show battle info. This is just to declutter the screen. And I actually recommend that you do this because it's actually a really pretty game mode, and it's kind of a tight POV. Having the damage numbers really takes away from the vibe, I want to say, and sort of like that zombie feel, that sort of apocalyptic feel. Whereas without them, it looks a lot nicer, and it's a lot cleaner, and it's actually going to be easier for you later on because something really important happens at 42 seconds. And you want to make sure that you can see exactly where that is, because that is when the big boss spawns. And so you want to keep track of the big boss because targeting is a really big issue, especially when you go into higher stages and you find that your damage is dropping off. Usually it's because of bad targeting. Now at 42 seconds, boom, you're going to get a quick little cutscene. A boss is going to spawn, and then you're going to go and you're going to attack them. It actually pauses the game for you. So if you don't have it on auto, you'll have to press the screen to continue. So this is a nice way to actually pause the game for free without having to pause it. But you can always pause it up in the top right-hand corner because there's no penalty for that. It's not an actual multiplayer game mode. Now, keep in mind here, his HP bar is going to disappear quickly, but keep in mind that this boss has a typing. You can see next to his HP, there's a fist because Captain America, of course, is a combat type. And if you turn on the battle info, you can see the yellow numbers for Doctor Strange when he's hitting him. And if Deadpool was hitting him, you would see the gray numbers. So typing does matter. That's the first big tip I want to give you guys. In addition to not showing the battle info, typing does matter. So if you're struggling on a stage and the boss is Doctor Strange and you're using combat types, well, maybe try using speed types or universal types. And if those don't work, you can at least try using blast types. You always want the type advantage to work in your favor because that's leveraging, anywhere from 20 to 60% damage increase, right? It's a damage increase that scales when you are attacking into the sort of rock, paper, scissors, right? Water beats fire, fire beats grass, grass beats water, and then universal has like a flat bonus. So we'll go up to a little bit of a higher stage so we can show you guys again, but as you'll notice, the stages do reflect the 3 types. You have Falcon for speed, Doctor Strange for blast, and Captain America for combat, and it just cycles through like that. So you'll always have a way of leveraging type advantage to your advantage. So we're going to go to a higher stage here, not quite 90, but we're going to go to, let's say, 60. And what my advice to you is, let's go 58. My first other big piece of advice is to autoplay as many stages as you can. Like, you have to start at stage 1, or at maybe I think 30. You have to slowly unlock them, but go up stage 1 by 1 or whatever. Go up by 10 stages every time, and just chuck it on autoplay and see if you can beat it on auto. There are some advantages to being on auto. For example, like the targeting can sometimes be a little bit tighter when it comes to certain V-pad skills or certain like hold skills. And in general, the autoplay does pretty well. It also gives you a chance to just watch the game rather than having to focus on playing. And then once you get stuck, my advice is, climb as many stages as you can on auto, and then you'll know, okay, I can do up to stage, like, whatever. I can do up to stage 27 on auto, and that's just something that's good to know in case you ever need to just get a quick score in while you're busy, to just dial the difficulty down to 25 or 27, and boom, hit your autoplay up. Autoplay can also help you test certain teams, because you can see how the team performs, and if a team performs like 10 stages better on auto, chances are they're going to perform even better when you can manually control them. Once you get stuck at a stage, if you want to keep climbing, and I do recommend that you keep climbing because you want to secure that rank 1 or rank 2 position for your week, for your group, then you want to start playing on manual. The rest of my tips are going to be specifically for manual play, aside from team composition, so just keep that in mind, that manual play goes a long way in this game. So here you go. I'm going to take this off auto. I'm going to turn on the battle information, and what you'll see is that when Deadpool is attacking Captain America, I just want to, reiterate this again. Okay, Doctor Strange died, but he's basically, okay, he died as well. Stop dying, guys. You see the gray numbers because Captain America is a combat type. So yeah, typing definitely does matter in this. And as you can see, we actually can't even do enough damage to kill Captain America because we lost our type advantage, and yeah, we lost most of our bonus. Plus, my Deadpool doesn't have a PvE build, so he's not really going to go very high. That's another thing. It's a PvE game mode, so having a proc obelisk, having an energy or judgment or destruction CTP, having a rage, those are going to go a long way as well. PvP builds are not really going to do a good job of carrying you beyond, the early stages, like the 10 to 30 range. Once you get past that, you're definitely going to need PvE focused builds. Now, as far as the team goes, the team composition, I want to talk to you guys about 2 main strategies. So for those of you wondering, yes, support characters do work. It doesn't seem like they work because sometimes their buffs icons are hiding, but it's been confirmed supports absolutely work. So you don't actually want to bring in 5 DPS characters or 5 like main damage deal characters. That's not really the play here. I know there are reserve characters, but they're actually there for support. They're there to support your 2 main DPSs, your 2 starting characters, and ideally none of your starting characters die. So if I play well enough, if I do my strategy correctly, Deadpool and Doctor Strange should not die. Now, as far as the supports go, you have one of 2 main strategies. These are not your only options. You're obviously welcome to play this game mode however you want. But the way that I found to be most successful is to pair 2 DPS characters with 3 support characters. Now, this is important because when you pair 2 DPSs together, you want to make sure you don't make the mistake that I made. And I'll give you a second here to catch the mistake that I made. The mistake that I made is that I paired a hero with a villain. Zombie Strange is a villain, Deadpool's a hero. So Mysterio's buffs and Sin's buffs are actually not doing anything for Deadpool. So poor old Deadpool is getting, shanked. Taskmaster is buffing both of them, but that's not really good enough. Likewise, if I were to swap out Deadpool for Ghost Rider, same thing applies, but okay, let me go ahead and swap out Taskmaster for Ghost Panther. That's really cool, and the Ghost Panther buffs are great for Ghost Rider, but they're not doing that much for Doctor Strange because he doesn't deal elemental damage. So what would be a better team setup here? Well, probably better to drop Doctor Strange for another elemental damage character, like maybe Luna Snow, or maybe Jean Grey. Again, it depends on your roster, but you want to take these things into consideration when you're constructing a team because the supports need to synergize with the DPS characters. So in this case, I'm actually going to go with Doctor Strange as a villain, and I'm going to go with Hela as another villain. I think this is one of the best teams you can put together, spoiler alert. and then we're going to use 2 villain-specific supports, and then Taskmaster's kind of like our generic support. So this, I think, is one of the best teams you can actually field. Doctor Strange plays really well on auto, and as you saw from the auto play, the 4th skill gets controlled really well. And then all you do with Hela is you play her manually. And you're playing her with, you know, like a CTP of energy or a CTP of destruction build, which is fine. And you're basically just holding on until the boss spawns, and then you're popping off with her tier 3 skill. And so what this is going to look like in play is like this. I'm going to show you guys here. You're going to play the beginning pretty normal, pretty straightforwardly. And, you know, you're just going around, whatever. You also have to keep in mind, you have to babysit your charge ups if you have a mighty CTP or a brilliant CTP, because when you move around, obviously that's going to charge up your strike proc or your beatdown proc or whatever you have equipped. So you do need to manage that for when the boss shows up, but you're basically just kind of big chilling until the boss shows up. Sure, if you can clear more waves of mobs, and I, sent my tier 3 before it was ready to proc, so I didn't get the most amount of damage. If you can clear more waves, that's good for a higher score, but I'm not doing this right now to show you a perfect run. I'm doing this to show you what you need to do in anticipation of the boss, because the first minute plays pretty straightforwardly, but once you get close to the 40-second mark, you have to start basically stalling. And you're stalling because you want everything ready for when the boss shows up. So I have my tier 3. I'm not going to trigger it because I won't be able to charge it up again for the 42-second mark. And I'm basically just setting things up. So now, I don't want to take any damage, and I want to charge up my strike proc. But now I just want to, stand still and not press anything. Wait for the boss to spawn. The boss is going to spawn, and then we're going to pop off. And if you do it properly, you should do a ton of damage. Now, I actually think I missed my proc somehow, which is unfortunate, but that's okay because we should get at least one more try here. But that's basically how it's going to work for certain characters. Now, this is not for every character. Obviously, some characters who have, builds where you're using a CTP of Rage or you're using a different kind of build, you're not going to need to worry about that. But if you have these sorts of build-up effects, you're going to want to put them into use right when the boss shows up, and then possibly again. So see, if I had the boss still alive, I would have been able to get one more tier 3 rotation off on the boss before the end of the fight. And this is really important. This is a key thing to note, because if you don't kill the boss, you fail the run. It doesn't matter how many zombies you killed. If you do not kill the boss, you fail the run. So you absolutely have to prioritize killing the boss. The first minute and 20 seconds are important because you have to stay alive, and you do want to rack up some zombie kill counts to raise your score. But ultimately, you need to make sure you have enough burst damage to kill the boss in the last 40 seconds. Otherwise, it's over. And all of that work you put in the first minute and 20 seconds is, for nothing. So you have to line things up properly if you are playing proc characters, if you're playing characters who have, extra abilities like a strike or a beatdown, or the judgment's type enhancement effect where you run around to charge it up. You want to make sure that you're lining all of that up with your tier 3 skill, with your tier 4 skill, and then you're popping it all off when the boss spawns, and that's going to involve waiting near the time when the boss spawns at 42 seconds. It also means you're going to have to get a little bit more intimately, knowledgeable about your characters that you're playing. Because if you were to ask me to play this the first time, or if you would have seen me play this the first time with no practice, I probably would have used Hela's tier 3 skill again, and then it wouldn't have been ready for when Captain America first spawned. Or I would have kept spamming Doctor Strange's tier 4 skill, and then it wouldn't have been ready when Captain America spawns. And you want to make sure that you can saturate as much damage, you can concentrate as much damage as soon as the boss spawns for the remaining 40 seconds. So that's my other big piece of gameplay advice. Now, we talked about a 2-character, 3-support setup like this. However, there is another setup that you can do, and it is called the 4-in-1, or just 1 DPS and 4 supports. Now, this does not work with a lot of different characters, but especially if your roster is still in building mode, you only have a couple of tier 4s, you may have to rely on this strategy. Now, Of course, this strategy is going to require you to have more support characters. So again, it's up to you. But for example, let's say I didn't have Hela tier 4. Let's say most of my other... Let's say I didn't have any other villain tier 4s. Let's just put it that way. I don't have any other villain tier 4s. Am I going to use a villain tier 3 with all these support buffs? Am I going to use a hero and they don't have any buffs? Yeah, maybe I could use Ghost Rider. I could use another hero. Or maybe I just use another support. Maybe I throw in Mystique or I throw in Coulson. I know not all of his buffs apply to Doctor Strange, but yeah. Maybe I throw in Wong or Falcon or some other support, and I just put all my eggs into the Doctor Strange basket. Or let's say I want to do something else. You know what? I'm going to use Ghost Rider here. And I'm just going to go full send on the supports. We're just going to go Giga supports here, and it's going to, be all on him. And this can actually work, believe it or not. This can actually work. This 4+1. And actually, currently, I think Pedro, the content creator, he has the only level 100 clear that he was able to achieve with a 4+1 setup. That's 4 supports and 1 DPS. Now, I'm not saying that these 4 supports are necessarily the best for Ghost Rider. It depends on your builds. It depends on, if you have these artifacts, if you have the whatever, insights or liberations equipped on these characters, who knows? But this is an example of a character who can utilize tons of different buffs, and it can scale their damage so massively, and they do so much damage, they do so much burst damage, that it can work. So this is a team that I recommend you try if you're struggling with this game mode with zombie survival. I think the Doctor Strange Hela team is another really good one. I think the Jean Grey Ghost Rider team is also really good. You do have to sub out some of the supports for something a bit more kind of generic, but again, it's still very, very good because these elemental buffs apply evenly to Jean and Ghost Rider. And overall, I would rank the top 5 best DPS characters for this game mode as follows. Ghost Rider 1, Doctor Strange 2, Hela 3, Jean Grey 4, and then Rogue 5. I understand that 2 of those uniforms, 2 of those characters are actually seasonal. I know it's kind of a pain, and I know that even some of the supports like Satana and Sin and Mysterio are also seasonal supports. It's kind of just, it's a bit unfortunate, but it's kind of just the way this game mode is shaking up right now. This is not necessarily the way it's going to be from now on, right? We don't know how the game mode is going to, play out in the future, but we'll have to wait and see. But for now, this is kind of my advice to you. So I would pair up 2 or 3, 1 or 2 of these characters with supports that you feel are going to work really well. See another example here if you wanted to do something like this. Again, I know Rogue is seasonal, but you could do something like this and then instead use Storm, because Storm's support ability is just generic elemental damage, so it's still going to help Jean, it's still going to buff Jean, but it's going to be more balanced. So something like this. Again, I know it includes 3 seasonals. Man, it's really hard not to have a bunch of seasonals. But yeah, the last thing I want to talk about here is the absence of transcended characters thus far in the meta for this game mode. Now, it's only been a couple of days, so it's way too early, and I am not saying that, like, stamp of approval, this is the meta, these are the characters you're going to use for this game mode going forward, and no one else. But I do think it's curious, it's interesting that I haven't seen any high-level clears that have utilized transcended characters. And I think the reason for that is the lack of ability to build up to a certain skill, and that is, in this case, the tier 3. Right? With transcended characters, you're stuck on a 30-second timer, and so you have to be careful and you have to play a very specific way because there's no way to get that skill available sooner. And because of that, you are basically in a way punished because this is such a short game mode that you can save. Obviously, after your first transcended skill, you save it so you can pop it right when the boss spawns at 42 seconds. But because it's 42 seconds, that means you're only going to get one more shot with about 12 seconds left to pop your transcended skill again. And so for characters like Psylocke, etc., that rely on that transcended skill to give them really big buffs, accumulation, etc., they don't really have a large window of opportunity to saturate. And they certainly wouldn't be able to pop their transcended skill a second time before the boss spawns, because then it's going to bleed into when the boss is there and it's not going to overlap properly. So I think it's interesting to see that certain game modes like Shadowland, for example, benefit transcended characters because they can unleash right away. but other game modes where you have a staggered release of enemies and then you have a timer running down actually makes transcended characters in some case a little bit worse. We'll wait and see what happens. We haven't had a lot of strong transcended characters as tier 4s anyways recently, so it's also a you know, just kind of a coincidental design flaw. You know, most tier 4s lately have just been tier 3 characters, and the ones that have been transcended have either been support characters like Angel, or they're kind of mixed like Beta Ray Bill. But in any case, you know, that should change in the future. It just isn't the case for right now. So hopefully these tips have been helpful for you. Let me know who you're going to be building up in your roster soon to tackle this new zombie survival game mode, and post your screenshots with your ranking. Keep in mind that every week it's going to rotate and you're going to get a new list of 50 players. So these are not all of the players in the game. The game's not dead, guys. It's just 50 random players being chosen, or 49 random players being chosen to duke it out with you. Who knows? Maybe some weeks you'll be paired with me and you can show me a thing or two. Anyways, hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. Smash the like button if you enjoy the content, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.